So, I'm Anthony Romano, and this video is on will tasting sweetness break a fast? So, people who are interested in intermittent fasting, prolonged fasting, ketogenic dieting, they're all basically siblings from the same family because they're the same state. Essentially, when you taste something sweet, whether it's gum, whether it's a beverage that has sweeteners in it, people are concerned about if that's going to break the fasted state or trigger an insulin rise. Now, the short answer is maybe, but it depends very highly on who you are and what the sweetener is. So we'll get into this in a very quick video here, but I'll tell you in general from the research we have today, who's going to experience what. So, with sweeteners, okay? I'm going to start off with sweeteners before I get into the individual variants, okay? We have a couple main sweeteners that are used in a lot of products. I mean, I have a whole video, like a 30-minute video on artificial sweeteners and natural sweeteners and which ones are best to use. To make things simple for this video, the main natural sweetener is stevia, okay? There's also monk fruit, and when we're talking about beverages, those are the ones that are going to be most popular for natural sweetening. And there's also other fillers like, you know, beet juice, other things like that. Now, when we're talking solely the zero-calorie sweeteners, okay, the zero-calorie sweeteners are generally not going to cause a insulin rise. However, if you are somebody who is consuming those zero-calorie sweeteners and you're overweight, you're much more likely to have an insulin rise. In fact, if you're somebody who's overweight or a type 2 diabetic / insulin resistant, what's going to happen is the moment you even smell food, you will get a slight insulin rise, and your blood sugar will basically anticipate having food come in. So, I'll tell you some other tips on how to mitigate this in a moment. But the main thing is that if you're somebody who, when we're talking about the individual level, your body composition and how fit you are right now makes a huge difference. From here, when we're getting back into the artificial sweeteners, so sucralose, sulfate, potassium are the most common ones. Of course, there's other things like Diet Coke, which have aspartame, and aspartame will undoubtedly cause a reaction in your body no matter who you are, and here's why. Aspartame is an excitatory neurotoxin, which means that it tricks your brain into releasing more glutamate, which is an excitatory neurotransmitter, so that you think food tastes better than it does. You get more of an exciting reaction to it. So, when we're talking about, is your fasted state going to break? Well, with aspartame, hell yeah, because even if you don't have, you know, a insulin rise necessarily, which you definitely will because it tastes sweet, what will happen is your this exciting cascade of events is probably going to trigger a blood sugar rise and a cortisol rise. So basically that's going to mobilize a little bit more blood sugar into your bloodstream, which will probably have a slight insulin rise. So it's almost like it's going to break that fasted state, not because your body is anticipating food, but because it's put it in a slight stress situation, even though it could be a good stress, right, if you're focusing on something. Because that heightened blood sugar in the blood and the insulin's going to have to react to that, especially because it's probably triggered by cortisol, which often triggers blood sugar release with it because it's a glucocorticoid. Basically, aspartame is a no-go. Okay, Diet Coke, cut it out. Don't use it. You can use naturally sweetened beverages like that, and that's probably going to be fine. But again, if you're somebody who's overweight, that's a problem. So let's get to sucralose. Now, sucralose is a very common sweetener, and for some reason, the FDA is able to label it as a natural sweetener, even though it's not. Stevia and monk fruit are going to be the natural sweeteners. And sucralose is basically chemically similar to a pesticide. It's only been around for so long, so we don't quite know what it does in the grand scheme of things, but it's generally not the best sweetener to consume, okay? Realistically, do I have supplements that contain sucralose in them? Yes. Do I try to keep it to a minimum? Hell yes. But here's the thing. When I have my ketchup, you know, my low sugar ketchup with 4 milligrams of sucralose, do I cry at night? No. But if I see a Monster energy drink with 180 to 300 milligrams of sucralose, am I going to have that? No. But if I see a supplement that has 20 milligrams of sucralose, I'm not going to get bent out of shape, but I'm still going to opt for mainly stevia sweetened or monk fruit, okay, other natural sweeteners. So the thing is, sucralose has never been shown to have any problems in the short term. We don't know about the long term. I wouldn't recommend banking on that for the long term. But the main thing is that in some studies recently, as of 2019, well, I know it's 2020 now, but as of 2019 last year, I saw some studies basically that in some individuals, sucralose can up an insulin response, okay? Because it is sweet, and stevia hasn't been shown to do that unless it's been in obese individuals or insulin-resistant individuals. So the thing is, I imagine there's also a point of no return where you could kind of overdo any sweet taste and your body will have a reaction to it. So that is one thing to keep in mind if you're excessive with things. Now also, the other factor to consider here is if somebody is highly dependent on a carb metabolism, it's going to be very hard for you to basically not get an insulin rise because your body is only using carbs as fuel. This is why I talk so much about ketogenic dieting and fasting, because the more you do it, it's like a muscle. You grow your ability, which is really just your hormone control. Your hormones get used to you not jacking up the carbs all the time. You not jacking up the insulin all the time. When you're doing a ketogenic diet, your insulin is always stable and low. So it's not going to be anticipating a massive insulin spike whenever you are about to eat. Even if you eat something sweet, even if you get used to natural sugars, or natural sweeteners rather, your body's not going to treat it like sugar. So somebody who's on a carb-dependent metabolism highly is going to have more of a reaction there. And I mean, I'm kind of just extrapolating out of studies I've read there for that one, but it's a principle that seems to be, valid at this point, okay? The more carb adapted you are, or carb dependent rather, the more likely you are to have an insulin rise, which is another flaw with a lot of these studies that are, some of the studies that are out on this, because they don't look at what the study patients are not experiencing. So they look, oh yeah, this person's blood glucose went up. Well, are they overweight? Yeah. Well, are they a fit person? Okay, maybe they are. What does their diet consist of, right? There's other individual variables that you cannot isolate for. So the general measuring stick is if you're a fit person, you're less likely to have a reaction. If you're highly glucose dependent, you're more likely to have a reaction, whether you're fit or not. Stevia and monk fruit always offer the least blood sugar propensity of being raised and insulin of being raised. But the more you fast, the more you do ketogenic dieting, the less likely you are to have a reaction, right? Because your body's not anticipating this. Now, here's another tip I'm going to throw at you, because this one is killer, and I don't think anybody else is going to have this one. Besides, I don't think anybody else is going to have the whole first 6 minutes of the video. 6 minutes of the video. Your ghrelin. So there's another hunger hormone called ghrelin. This is the one that makes you hungry. And something interesting is that ghrelin typically rises at the same times every day. So let's say you have breakfast at 10 a.m. and lunch at 1 p.m. and then you have dinner at 6. Okay, so 10, 1, and 6. Your ghrelin basically every day is going to rise at those exact times, regardless of what you do, regardless of which country you move to. In those hourly amounts, whatever your body thinks 10, 1, and 6 is when ghrelin's going to rise. So your body's going to anticipate food at those times. Another variable that I don't think other research studies have considered is people's ghrelin independent of the time. I mean, we've only known about ghrelin since like 2004 or 2005 or something. So, and that's not even to consider with leptin as well. So, realistically, with ghrelin, I bet you, if somebody had a sweetener at a time that their body is used to eating, you're more likely to have a insulin reaction, okay? Because your body's anticipating food already. So in that sense, I don't have a specific study to compare to. That's kind of just my own extrapolation and, estimation here. But I know based on the mechanisms of how ghrelin works that your body's going to be anticipating food, and that's what's going to make you hungry. So a key to work around this is, let's say you're consuming your beverage at a time where you normally don't eat, or a time where you're normally fasted. Let's say somebody fasts until 1 p.m. every day. Well, I'd bet a big wager that if you eat your meals at 1 every day and you had your drink at 1, you're more likely to release an insulin response or break the fasted state than if you had the drink at 10 a.m. Now keep in mind, the contents of the drink matters, and my other video on supplement consumption on a fast makes a difference. So example, if you're consuming something highly insulinogenic like BCAAs, then yeah, you're going to have an insulin rise in a slight manner depending on the dose of BCAAs. But let's just say we're talking about water and pure like flavoring, right? Just stevia flavoring. Then your insulin's probably not going to rise, okay? So separate from the contents of the beverage, when we're just talking about sweeteners, then what's going to happen is your body, depending on where its circadian processes are in that moment, will vary on how you process the sweetener. So we're talking just sweetener, right? No other contents of the supplement. what's going to happen is, depending on your anticipated ghrelin spikes, which you can work around because it typically takes a couple days to basically change those anticipations. So for some of my clients that I work with, basically, if somebody is always hungry at a certain in the morning, right, and we're trying to get them to burn more fat by taking advantage of the fat burning fast that took place over sleeping, what I'll often do is, if the person is used to having breakfast right away, you can extend that with some sort of a bulletproof coffee type of thing, or something that's low insulin food, so just fat and protein, for example, carrying out that low insulin state, and then gradually getting the body used to having meals later in the day, okay? The actual meals. And then from there, you basically can shorten the amount of ghrelin spikes every day, because even in people who eat once every 2 days, if they eat on Tuesday and Thursday, right, and they don't eat Monday and Wednesday, their body's not going to have a ghrelin spike on Monday and Wednesday, but on Tuesday and Thursday, it will at the exact times they normally eat. So keep that in mind. That's another principle here to keep track of. During the different points of your circadian hunger hormone rhythm, that will also influence the sweetener reaction. Okay, so hopefully this was clear to you. And overall, keep in mind, the content of the drink still matters, and I have another video on that. In general, anything under 40 calories is better, but you have to make sure that it's a drink that's not going to be likely to spike insulin. As far as the fat burning side of things goes, for people who are doing autophagy and, cellular cleansing, inflammation repair, injury recovery, so in that case, you want to keep the fast as pure of a fast as possible. The less coffee, less tea, and anything you put into your gut is going to trigger less enzymatic reactions. So yeah, in that case, keep the fast pure and pure. But when we're talking, the sort of fat loss side of things or the body composition side of things, and you're not doing a treatment for some issue therapeutically, then yeah, in that scenario, that's where under 40 calories tends to be best, as long as it's not from an insulinogenic source of a supplement or a drink or whatever. But as far as 0 calorie, just pure stevia sweetener with water, that I gave you basically the scheme for this. Depending on who you are, depending on how dependent your body is on carbs, and dependent on your circadian rhythm, is going to be the key determiners of how much of a reaction you have to sweet tastes in and of themselves, whether it's gum, whether it's water, whatever. Okay, whenever you're not actually eating anything. So that is it. Subscribe to me right now, like the video right now, and follow my Instagram right after you subscribed and liked me. So, thank you, Anthony Romano. Peace.